So I just got done watching this video from the Car Care Nut. He breaks down the new twin-turbo V6 in the Toyota Tundra. I'm going to just give you some highlights of what I didn't like. But first, I want to show you, I just did a borescope of my 5.7 liter Toyota engine. It's a 2008 5.7. I want to show you what the inside of my cylinders looks like with a borescope, just to give you a frame of reference of what an old 2008 looks like on the cylinder walls and maybe the backside of a couple valves. And then we'll compare that to what I see in this video. And this is a perfect example, I think, of why older Toyotas are going for more now than the newer Toyotas, and why the newer Toyotas aren't as sought after as the old guard. So let's jump into my borescope video here. All right, so this is heading down one of my cylinders here. I pulled the spark plugs. I did 4 cylinders. We're going to take a quick peek at this here. And this is the top of the first piston there. There is quite a decent amount of carbon buildup, as you can see, but it's not terrible. You'll have to let me know if you're an engine builder and you're looking at this. I think it looks pretty normal, and we're going to get to the side here as well. I have a 90-degree camera, and I'm happy to see that it's not steam cleaned. My big worry was that the 5.7, you know, it's had some head gasket failures as you get to higher mileage. So this to me looks like it should be okay as far as it's not steam cleaned. And this is, I believe, cylinder 7. Here's the side camera here, and you do see some carbon buildup, and the valves look pretty clean, at least on the top of the valves. We'll show a different image here in a moment of the backside of the valves and kind of just how clean they are with port injection only. But you do see some carbon deposits there, which is pretty normal around the valves. This is pretty cool. Look at that. I mean, you can still see beautiful crosshatch. This is, you know, from the factory. This is what it should look like, and the crosshatching holds oil as the piston goes up and down to retain some oil. And that looks really, gosh, that looks good for over 200,000 miles. Right here, you can see some vertical wear. And that's, you know, for the mileage, I really don't think that's that big a deal. You have to let me know if you think this is a huge deal or not. I don't think it is, but it's obviously got some vertical wear going. Who knows how long this engine's going to make it. It owes me nothing at this point. I've had it paid off for so long. It's like however long it lasts is great to me. We'll head to the next cylinder here. Now, this cylinder is actually pretty cool because you actually get to see the backside of the valves. I'm going to show you in the Car Care Nuts video the backside of the valves in the new twin-turbo V6 and just what forced induction, I think, does to cars and how much carbon buildup you get. So here's the top of this. It's hard to see here. I need to back it up. There's the top of this piston. Looks about the same. All the pistons looked almost identical as far as carbon buildup in my engine. So here's a good shot of the backside of the valves in this. This cylinder's got the valves opened up, and you can see the seating area there. It looks really good. I mean, this is what I was actually surprised. I expected to see a lot more carbon buildup on the backside of these valves. And boy, I was pleasantly surprised with this. Look at how clean those are for the mileage. I mean, I've never run heavy duty cleaner through this at all. And this is really why these old Toyotas, why people are buying them up and why the value is going up. Now let's jump over to the Car Care Nut and his video. So first I'll start out with the positives of the V6, the revised, basically what replaced the 5.7. The only real positives I can find is, well, you have more power, which is nice. I mean, they are smooth and extremely high torque. They do have a 2-piece timing cover, and the way they designed the heads, so the old 5.7s used to have cam tower leaks, and the way they designed this V6, you actually shouldn't have those same cam tower leaks anymore. Just the design is updated. They don't have a wet oil pump belt. So compared to other brands, I think I do appreciate that Toyota is, you know, still chain driven on everything. All right, let's start out with the first problem. He's pointing at the back of the engine here, and the PCV valve is located at the back of the engine. And he points that out and says that is a terrible design. When you look at where it is inside the truck, you actually can't get to this PCV valve without pulling everything off because the intercooler is on top. You have all this tubing. It is a total pain to get to what could be a maintenance item, especially with a forced induction engine. So when you look at his truck here and the engine inside this truck, look at just the back side of that towards the windshield wipers. It's back behind all of that, which is really hard to get to. He did go on to talk about how there's a massive plate in the back towards the bell housing, basically, and the rear main seal. And he said there was a lot more room for things to leak, or a lot more surface area where you have sealant back there. That seems to be a theme in this engine. He says the same thing about the front timing covers, a lot more sealant being used. Hopefully they won't leak as they get older, but he thought there might be a lot of potential for that. Now, the next thing he came up with that he didn't like was the timing chain. He didn't think that it felt quite as robust, and I think he was actually pointing out, time will tell is what he says, but he doesn't want to say it's going to be a problem, but here's what he said about that.
This doesn't feel as robust as, say, a 2G RFE.
So he's just pointing out, this guy has a lot of experience in touching so many different engines, rebuilding them, and he can tell immediately that he noticed a quality difference in just the weight and the construction of the chain. Now, this is where I kind of get into the comparison of just the limited video I was able to take of my high mileage 5.7. He goes on to say how this is a probably low mileage twin turbo V6. Look at the carbon buildup in the top of the cylinder here. So decent amount of carbon and soot there. And it's interesting, you saw the back of the valves in the 5.7 that I have, and watch what he says about these here.
Here's a concern. What happened here? That's the beginning of carbon buildup, folks. That's not good. And I've actually seen this before with this engine. For some reason, it does build carbon. That's not the greatest looking. Look at this one. Here's another one. That's how carbon buildup starts, folks. Before you know it, this thing is like a giant dome and it starts blocking.
This is what everybody wanted. They wanted port and direct injection in this, which is what they got. They have two sets of injectors. However, it doesn't seem to be, maybe the port injection's not being used enough, probably to increase fuel mileage. But it looks like the carbon buildup is already starting on these, and probably isn't going to be a problem until later on in life as it builds and builds and builds, but probably going to need intake valve cleaning on these, which everybody was hoping that they wouldn't need due to the addition of port injection. If you keep these out of warranty, 100,000, 150, you may end up having to do some induction cleaning. So to give you a little backstory on this engine specifically, it did have an event, is what he said, and it looks like it spun bearings, whether it was, started at the rod bearing or the main bearing. We'll go to see here what all of the cylinder walls look like. And I think this is what really sparked me to go, I thought I would go borescope my higher mileage one and see how bad my cylinder walls are compared to this. Now let's compare what he shows here.
Here's the interesting part, which is just shocking to me. Look at the cylinder walls. Look at the amount of wear on the cylinder wall. Right there. Even Jose was surprised by how that looks. That's not good. Same thing here. This one, the one that had the event, it actually has quite a bit of wear. This one as well.
So if we look at that right there, I mean, that's much more wear. Now, these are in the cylinders that, didn't have necessarily the same problem as the other one. Now, it could have been that this engine was low on oil. They could have had the valve guide problem that it was common in these for maybe like 6 months. They had a problem with some of the valves seating improperly, and then the engine would eat oil. So maybe that's why this ended up having these issues. So maybe it was low on oil, and that's why this happened. I don't really know, but that's a lot of, like you said, excessive wear, especially for an engine that probably has 100,000 or less. Another thing, he goes on to say they do have low tension piston rings, and he doesn't really like what he sees here on the oil ring specifically. Watch this.
But here's my concern with this. You see this oil ring? I mean, that's yeah, it does move, but it doesn't really turn very easily. And that's the problem.
You're already seeing signs of that oil ring locking up, and that's usually where oil consumption would start. Now, it could be, again, maybe this engine had some event that actually started to heat these parts abnormally. Maybe it wasn't maintained well, but it's not a good sign. Another thing that I don't like, the 4 bolts here instead of 6, and it's kind of a ladder system. In theory, this is supposed to be stronger than individual caps for your main bearings. However, I think this is proving to not be a good design, just given the amount of main bearing failures. Maybe this isn't contributing, but boy, it sure looks like this design maybe isn't going to work out for them, at least in my opinion. We'll see. There are high mileage Tundras out there that are working just fine. It could be something completely different. It could just be oiling, could be the variable oil pumps. There's a bunch of other things it could actually be why these main bearings are failing. Let's just hope that they get this issue behind them. Now, he does talk about the rod bearings here as well, and the rod bearings, he doesn't like that they don't have a lock groove. There's also a coating on here, and almost every rod bearing looks like it's worn pretty good. So it wasn't just the one that failed. It actually looks like to me, it looks like excessive wear on all the rod and main bearings that he pulls out of here, which doesn't give you warm fuzzies. And this is the second piston. Watch this. He kind of struggles with trying to move the oil ring.
Again, this is not a good measure, but this oil ring is just not going anywhere. And if that gets seized like this, that's not good. We have wear here. Well.
And in this part, he shows kind of that big ladder system that kind of holds the crank in and the main bearings, and you can see definitely more wear. Obviously, just similar to what everybody knows about the front bearing in these engines seeming to fail first and more likely than all of the other bearings.
That's very interesting.
And the same thing goes for the main bearings here. They don't have a lock tab. He talks about that.
This bearing is shot. Assuming these bearings are the same. See, this one is the same. Yeah, it's just the bearing going down. So I was thinking, what if this was open? Yeah, it's just the bearing. Do see wear on all of them though. When this fell out, I didn't see which direction it was. But did it walk out and do this? That's the interesting part. But I wish these had a lock tab. They don't.
Yeah, he says that multiple times. He says about the rod bearings and also the main bearings. Now, obviously, some people will argue that they're wedged in there and they're not going to go anywhere. But actually, on the front, there's not necessarily something keeping it from moving a little bit. And like he talks about in the video, where if you get a little bit more pressure on one edge or the other, if it is moving a little bit, that could be prematurely wearing these. Who knows at this point? They say it was debris. I don't know that anybody believes that.
Of course, when the bearing is this loose in this opening, I mean, look at this gap. When the bearing is this loose in this opening, of course it's going to walk. But I wonder if the updated engine that doesn't have debris and everything is good, did they do something here? That would be very interesting to find, because I'm just fascinated that this bearing does not have a locator pin.
So it will be interesting if his theory is correct here. Maybe the bearing update or the update they did in May of 2024, maybe it did help fix that, although we have seen 3 2025s with this main bearing issue, or at least presumably. I'll link it in the description below. He does say he really does like the truck a lot. He likes the ride. He likes everything about it. He does want Toyota to take care of the hybrid owners with this recall, and he's a hybrid owner. So I wanted to make this video because when I saw the wear in this engine, it just made me immediately want to go look at my engine. And I've been wanting to look for a while just to see if I have a developing head gasket issue in the 5.7, but looks like I'm hopefully safe from that. Let me know what you think in the comments. Do you think Toyota's going to get this figured out? It is 2025. They've had this issue really since 2022. It's less frequent, but I mean, we already have 3 2025 failures. In my opinion, the fact that we have any failures that are similar to this main bearing issue in the 2025s tells me that it might not be a debris issue. It might be something else. The secondhand market is going to be a total bummer for these trucks. Doesn't matter what brand, they're just so expensive to repair. After seeing the internals of this engine, and it feels like to me, it feels like they cut corners. It's tiny. You know, the amount of surface area to pump 500 foot-pounds of torque through, and the having less bearing surface area in variable oil pumps, it just makes me nervous. I wouldn't want to own one out of warranty. I suppose if I did own one, it would probably be a new one. and I would probably get rid of it after the powertrain warranty, or I'd get an extended warranty. That's probably the only way I would play any of these new vehicles at this point. Anyway, let me know what you think. And let me know, I would love to hear the comments of how do you think my 5.7 has a lot of life left, or you think it's on its last leg? I'm sure I'll get plenty of good comments on that. Thanks for watching. Till next time.